This podcast is built on the belief that there are many different pathways back to ourselves. Sometimes that path is through therapy, sometimes through movement, meditation, breath work, nature, or meaningful connection. Today, we explore another pathway with kinesiology and how learning to listen to the wisdom of the body may help us reconnect with who we truly are. My guest today is Sally Thornton from Innate Balance Kinesiology. Together, we explore the connection between the body, emotions, stress, and the nervous system, and what happens when we stop ignoring the messages our body has been trying to send us all along. Sally, I'm so excited to have you here today to talk all things kinesiology.
Me too. Thank you so much for inviting me. Very excited.
Yeah, same. So, Sally, I'd love to start with your story. What led you into kinesiology and this work that you're doing?
Well, the truth is, I was in England at the time and my life wasn't really going anywhere. I was feeling a bit stuck. And then I saw this course in Australia. And of course, I wanted to come here and you needed a visa. So the visa, as well as the interest, sort of got me here in the first place. And I first studied massage and the touch for health kinesiology back in 2009. And then my life kind of went off the rails a little bit. I was only young and I was excited about being here. But then I got back on the rails and re-studied the ICP-KP kinesiology, which is a very long one. If you don't have to do the whole thing, but you can. And I did the whole thing, which is about 5 years-ish. And I just loved it. It helped me on a personal level, actually, because all the balances that we learn, we have to do it on ourselves. And I must have just been in desperate need of some balancing at that time in my life. And it just brought me to it. And now I love it. And I help people every day. And I love that.
And you said that there's two different versions of, are there two different types of kinesiology courses you can do? Is there more of an entry one and then an extended one?
I'm really glad you asked that because so many people are called kinesiologists and people are confused. So there are so many, actually, different types of kinesiology. For example, the touch for health, you can actually learn that in 8 days. And then there's the holistic kinesiology, which I think you can learn in 1 year. And then the ICP-KP, you can do as long as you want, but the full one, you learn, it's a gigantic database and you don't need it all, but it is so beneficial to yourself and to your clients to have that.
So all of those 3 different types that you mentioned, are they all emotional release techniques or is it more the longer one?
Perfect. Good question. So we always find an emotion all the way through. Definitely, I would say all kinesiology releases emotions, all beneficial. There are, in the kinesiopractic one, which is what I do, we have some more body things because there are so many different techniques and balances that other people have studied, and we take it and we test that person's body, which ones they need, and they give a certain amount of that balance. So we can do so much for that person's body. Like it could be stuck in their pelvis. Everyone's pelvis seems to be just a little bit off, especially women. Or men, but women have childbirth or any boyfriend you've ever had. Those things sort of stick, that shock can stick in our cells, plus the emotion that was happening at that time, plus the subconscious takes a screenshot of the sensory information happening at that time. So many things can be going on for a person. Often they don't know because it's sitting below conscious awareness as our bodies are responding to what's going on in our subconscious mind.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, for those unfamiliar with kinesiology, how would you describe it in simple terms?
Kinesiology uses muscle testing to access the information in that person's body, in that person's subconscious mind, so that that person's body and subconscious mind can completely choose what it wants best to move forward. For example, let's say they have a goal consciously with a goal setter, but what's sitting in our subconscious might be incongruent with that. And because the subconscious is 95% and our conscious is only 5%, all of us. So what I consciously want is 5%. But if I've got something in here that's incongruent with that, it's going to pull me back to what feels familiar. That's why we can strive and strive and strive. And then something happens and brings us back. So kinesiology can access that information in that person's body. It's very individual. So I don't know the answers. We ask that person's individual body what it wants to move forward.
So I remember my first experience with kinesiology. I think I was pregnant, could have just been really early stages of pregnancy. And I went along to this quite a known centre in Sydney and chiropractic kinesiology and had this treatment. And I just remember it just blowing my mind. So I had this kind of crook neck and I'd never had a neck issue. I was putting it down to perhaps a whiplash injury that I'd had when I was younger, but all of a sudden it was flaring up being pregnant. And I was thinking, well, is it the pressure from my body changing with the pregnancy? I wasn't really understanding what was going on. And then he was testing me and he said, what happened in the last 2 weeks that relates back to when you were 17 or 18 years old? And it was really specific and it was just through the muscle testing. And I remember going, gosh, I'm like, oh, I can't recall. And then I recalled and then I was thinking, okay, my mum died when I was 17, 18 years old. What's going on here? And then next minute, I was bawling my eyes out on this table with this complete stranger because 2 weeks prior, I had written a letter to my mum and I put it on her grave. And it was about me being pregnant and wishing she was here. And it was just it blew my mind how accurate it was and the emotional release that I had from it. Does that happen often with your clients?
Yeah. And isn't it amazing? It's very profound. The things people go through, yourself included, like we really do need that support. It's a complementary medicine, let's call it, not alternative. So complementary of all the other things people have. But yeah, it happens all the time. I see all the things people go through. And sometimes they don't even tell me. And then what was happening at this age? Something's happening. And then they burst out in tears and they're like, I didn't want to say that, but this is what was happening.
Yeah. It's pretty powerful stuff, isn't it? And I think people might dismiss kinesiology as being woo-woo, but it's not woo-woo. I wouldn't consider it.
I wouldn't consider it woo-woo, especially with the amount of neuroscientists and cell biologists talking about this. Our emotions are not these energetic enigmas, and they have really found so much evidence on this, especially Dr. Candice Pert in her work. She found that our emotions are not these energetic enigmas. They're very real, measurable biochemical molecules, and they travel the body to find their receptor site that they bind to, which is their home, let's say. And these receptor sites are not only found in the brain, but all over the body. So in our organs, nervous system, immune system, skin, muscles, joints. And so when we're feeling a particular emotion, this molecule of that emotion travels around the body, binds to its receptor site, and has a particular effect on that cell, affecting the rest of our body. So if someone is feeling repeated fear or grief or hypervigilance, then that fearful molecule travels around the body, binds to its receptor site, and has a not so great effect on that cell, contributing to the stress chemicals being released, the fight and flight response, which is then having not such a great effect on our sleep, digestion, metabolism, cellular repair, immune function, etc. over time. But then the flip side is true as well. So when we're in a state of gratitude, joy, peace, safety, that happy molecule travels around the body, binds to its receptor site, and that cell's having a very different biochemical effect from that. This is contributing to healing, better sleep, better digestion, immune function and cellular repair.
I often say on this podcast that self-reconnection looks different for everyone, and some people find it through therapy, through meditation, exercise, nature, or breath work. Where does kinesiology fit into that picture?
Well, that's a really good point, because all of those things are extremely helpful, and we can definitely test the body. I always test the body at the end of the session. Is there anything else that I don't know? Is there something they know? Is there some modality that they need to go and see? And one of those modalities or others can show up for that person. And it's also interesting to note that we can do all the right things, can't we? We can meditate, do yoga, walks in nature, spend time with loved ones, eat a highly nutritional diet. But if we still have those underlying beliefs, I'm not good enough, something bad might happen, I can't handle daily tasks, then are those things just going to fill a void? It's almost like we need to do these things concurrently to create a change.
Yeah. So why do you think so many people become disconnected from themselves in the first place?
So, our body speaks to us through sensations before it screams at us through illness. And that can be anything like, oh, I've got this neck thing, or this headache that won't go away, this irritating cough, it's aches and pains, or it could even be psychological changes or impulses. As I said before, we're not separate from our feelings. So our musculoskeletal system, immune system, nervous system, endocrine system, fascia even, the fascia that runs through our body, have an interconnectedness and are in constant communication with each other, using what's sitting in our subconscious mind as a frame of reference. So I'll give you an example. Let's say a man is working on some machinery. He severs a finger. That's a big trauma. So in that moment, his subconscious mind takes a screenshot of all the sensory information. So everything he can see, hear, smell, taste, and feel in that moment. Now he can go away and physically heal that finger. But let's say he comes back after he's healed physically into an environment where he can see and hear and smell or taste the same thing as what was happening in that severed finger moment. That can trigger on the response, a very similar response in the body as if that trauma is happening again right now. So that's a very clear indication that the imprint in the subconscious mind from that trauma hasn't yet processed or softened, because our bodies like to keep us in homeostasis. So if I am someone that unconsciously perceives this room to be too hot for me, the hypothalamus, which is the control center of the brain, picks up that information, tells the pituitary gland to tell the sweat glands to start sweating, cool me down, bring me back to homeostasis. So the same is true as if we've got imprints from the past, or belief or a thought. The hypothalamus picks up that fearful information, talks to the pituitary gland to tell the adrenal glands to kick out some stress hormones to put us into a state of fight and flight, which is like number one priority to the body is survival. When we're in that state, all of our other bodily systems have to take a bit of a backseat, let's say, because the brain's saying, well, in theory, when we get back to safety, I can re-engage those systems. But the human brain can do something no other animal can do. So we can sit here completely safe, but remember that past threat, which can trigger on the fight and flight response, or perceive that future threat that can trigger on that fight and flight response.
I mean, it's fascinating, isn't it? Yeah.
So the negative feedback loop, right, that should normally switch the fight and flight response off, doesn't always happen. So it's like we've got this constant drip feed of these stress chemicals, these hormones and neurotransmitters. So over time, they get depleted. And then how do we feel? Like exhausted, emotionally flat. Hence why it's so important for us to listen to these signs and symptoms of our body, that ache and pain. So you made the right decision. You went and saw someone about that.
Mm. And interestingly, it came up quite a few times throughout that pregnancy. And I know that it was like a mother wound. It was something mother related, which was really interesting. Just to not had any physical issue at that particular time, it makes sense to me that it was emotionally connected. So what are the signs you commonly see, Sally, when someone has lost connection with their own needs or emotions when they come to see you?
I would say this is how I describe it to clients. If we were to picture ourselves like a fried egg or an egg, okay? And we've got our egg yolk. Your egg yolk is between you and a higher power, whatever you believe in, doesn't matter, God or divine, the universe, and no one else. It's for you and you only. Everyone gets one. Now, your egg white is your beautiful energy field, your natural personality, where you give and receive freely, because giving and receiving is the same vibration. So the egg yolk is meant for us at some point in our lives where we learned that our needs aren't met. So we learn to give from our yolk, our core energy. We call that sacrifice. And at some point in our lives, perhaps that was necessary in order for our survival. But later on in life, it starts to impact us in not such a great way. Giving from our core energy, making us feel resentful, and unconsciously we take from someone else's. That might look like snapping at someone. So it's about teaching ourselves and everyone, this is my core energy. It is not selfish to keep it for me. And I can learn, and it's a bit of trial and error, to give and receive freely from my outer energy, my egg white, because then we're giving and receiving from a grounded place rather than a charged place of, I hope that person likes me. I hope they don't hate me for doing this. It's rather, actually, what's right for me and what would I love to do for that person?
And it's such an important point, especially for women, especially for mothers that are just so used to self-sacrificing for other people. But it is that water bucket analogy I like, which I guess is similar to the egg yolk, is you can't fill someone else's bucket if your bucket is empty. So your bucket has to remain optimal at all times in order to spill it over into others. So it's like a balanced bucket load across the field. So I think that's a really important, valid topic. And so when our bucket is depleted or the egg yolk is fried or or scrambled, it's not great for our nervous system.
Never.
And like you said, we get resentful. We get pissed off that we haven't put our boundaries in place and put our needs first, which is really important.
Yeah. We never want that. So let's say with the bucket analogy, let's say it can only ever get to half full. That half is for you and you only. The top half you can give and receive freely from, but receiving, some people struggle with.
Yeah.
Because there's an energy around it. If I'm giving because of a belief that I have, if I don't give this and the other, it's not coming from a grounded place. Or if we're giving because just in case we might feel guilty. So it's about learning. Let's say if the aim is to be here, nice and balanced, I give and receive naturally and keep my egg yolk for myself. You might give too much one day or take too much one day, and that's okay. Just learn. It's like trial.
Yeah. And also I think it comes down to, like you were speaking about before, about the belief systems. It's really interesting when we've been wired that way, especially as women or little girls. It's like, be a good little girl. Don't be too noisy. Don't be selfish. Always share. Do the right thing. So when that's wired into our belief system as well, it's really hard to break that pattern. So if someone came to you with those patterns of behavior, how can kinesiology help them shift through that?
That's a really good question because I see it so much. I see this especially in women so much, but in men as well. Just can't put themselves first. It's so ingrained. It's like the subconscious has these established neural pathways in place. And if it's been imprinted as a child, oh, I have to be a good girl. I have to put other people before me and respect other people. The subconscious has a vested interest in keeping us the same because it believes it's keeping us safe. So it already has those established neural pathways and patterns in place to do that automatically, which is why a lot of our behaviours feel outside of conscious choice. It's no longer a choice, really. And that's why I love kinesiology so much, because there are balances and techniques that we can use that help us step outside of that automatic place of the brain and bring us into a place of observation and awareness. We can do that through body movements whilst investigating that underlying belief. And if that person's body wants, the related emotion, experiences and age and whatever else that are connected to that. We can allow that person's body to completely choose what it wants to process that belief, to rewire or to soften it, so that we're no longer operating from that automatic response.
And I guess from the nervous system area, it's really important for the clients to feel really safe. And like you said, when you're treating, it's allowing them to make the decision if the emotion is released or not.
Absolutely. Because we ask the body, what does the body want? If it is not feeling ready to do something, it will not do it. Plus, I always, in my practice, and I'm sure others do, the same, always set up a safe place beforehand. If anything gets too much, we just bring them back to that. Because we have our comfort zone, but we're here to grow. So we sometimes push a little bit outside our comfort zone because it can be quite confronting and upsetting to face that thing that I didn't want to look at. So we pushed us outside a little bit, but that's what their body wants. But we never push to stress.
Have you worked with clients who initially come seeking relief from physical symptoms to then uncover something much deeper than they would expect?
All the time, every session. Every time. There's always an underlying belief, a past experience, if that person's body wants to go there, and a related emotion somewhere along the session. If not, it can be that the person is someone who doesn't like to talk about things. That does happen. And there are balances to do that where there's just pressure points. They're called accumulation points, where people have accumulated it because they just don't know how to talk about things. They do not feel comfortable doing that. And those accumulation points and lead them to it. We're not here to push anyone.
So it's still releasing, even if they're not willing to show it, it's still releasing through.
Yeah. There's no right and wrong in kinesiology. We just trust that body and trust that person's body, because sometimes when you're in the sort of area of this healing energy, it's like your emotional intelligence picks that up and goes, right, I'm ready to process this in my own time, though, not right here. That might be right for that person.
That actually just reminded me of another. I did some binge kinesiology work a few years ago and went around to different practitioners to try it out. But that is true. I remember going for something specific that I wanted to know, that I had sort of kept coming up and presenting itself. So I went to see this specific kinesiologist over the Northern Beaches. And I remember going, oh, like that was it? And he said to me, yes, but don't hop in your car and drive straight away, because sometimes the body can process in a different way. He said, take your shoes off, go walk in the grass, and don't hop in the car and drive yet, because you might get some visuals. And I remember thinking, what a load of bullshit. And so I jumped in my car and I drove. And while I was driving, I received these very strong visuals. It's so hard to describe it, but it was almost like a movie. It just flashes of a movie, and it was actually very upsetting because it was something quite big. But yes, so that makes sense to me that it doesn't always come out in a session. And I
No.
obviously didn't feel safe enough to process it in there. And then it was like this unwinding afterwards. Really fascinating stuff. And in fact, it was kinesiology that really got me on my journey of self-awareness and self-reconnection work.
Yeah.
Mm,
Mm.
yeah. And I'm sure you've got many stories like that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. People come in all the time, totally unaware and like, oh, this back issue, why is it reoccurring? And then we go in like, wow, I haven't thought about that in years, but thank you, and release it and process. Sometimes all you have to do is say it and someone just to listen to you.
Mm.
And sometimes, often, that is all it needs. People text me all the time, oh my gosh, my back thing didn't come back. Oh my gosh, wow, I feel completely different in this situation that I used to get so anxious in.
Yeah.
And
And
sometimes,
the mind body stuff is really powerful. And just to go back to people who do dismiss it as woo woo, I mean, it's not that uncommon. If you're nervous, you get butterflies. If you're nervous, you get a stomach ache. If you're stressed, you get a headache. If you're really stressed, you can get hives. Like it is a real thing. Stress can show up and impact the body in many different ways, not just in the ones that I pointed out. So I think it's really important to touch on those type of topics for the people that are perhaps skeptical.
absolutely, because mind-body connection in everyday life, so these are everyday things that we do, can still trigger that fight and flight response. Because the brain doesn't know the difference between now I'm getting chased by a scary animal, or now it's the mortgage or the rent I need to pay, or now I'm stuck in traffic, or now it's my boss or the kids. It just reads danger. And so it puts us into that state of fight and flight. As I mentioned before, has a not so great effect on the rest of our bodily functions, especially if it is every day. If I am perceiving my everyday tasks to be bigger than what I am unconsciously, it's going to trigger on that fight and flight response. And it's almost people's baseline is rising, if you've noticed. Like, let's say we're default setting to be rest and digest. And if we get chased by a scary animal, fight and flight, back to rest. And then we might have an exam to study for, or a job interview. That's good stress. And then we come back down. But people are like, their baseline's risen. So it's just like, are you stressed? No, not really. Because they don't even see it. It's just constant.
Yeah.
And they give themselves permission to rest. Like, oh, I'll go and sit down for 5 minutes. Then it's like, right now what?
Yeah.
So again, it's like that constant drip feed of those chemicals.
I feel like it's modern day life as well. I feel like if I think back to, I mean, I'm older than you, but if I think back to when I was younger, even just being at school, my parents would probably get a letter a term on what was happening at school, you know, and now these days you've got apps, you've got WhatsApp group for parents, you've got school apps, you've got emails from the school, then you've got social group WhatsApps and Instagram and Facebook and emails. And I mean, we're just plugged in 24/7. So when you say everyone's at this baseline of midline instead of coming back down, it's no wonder.
Yeah. And doesn't it resonate? Like, I speak to young clients that come in, teenagers, 20-year-olds, feeling that way.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Wired.
Yeah, because we were stressed as teenagers, but not like this. They have all the things that happened to us as teenagers on top of all this new stress of all this things going on.
Yeah. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about kinesiology?
I think people don't realize the science behind it. We really can muscle test and access information in the subconscious mind because it's not really being taught at schools. And like, for example, Dr. Bruce Lipton, back in the 1960s, he found we're not a victim to our genes. So he got a cell, split it into 2 cells, and put them into 2 completely different environments. So, for example, one was played music, one was not. And they grew into completely different cells, for example, a bone or a muscle. So what that means is that our emotions, our beliefs, our thoughts, our energetic exposure to environments, to stimuli, to different vibrations, like Mother Nature or music, can influence whether our genes express themselves or don't. So this can explain why when 2 identical twins can grow up to have very different lives, perhaps one's a marathon runner, has heart problems. Because whatever gene is expressed is responsible for a lot of our reaction and experiences, perhaps. And what the body needs to deactivate an unwanted genetic response can be very different from person to person. So it might be that they need to deactivate that material energetically, emotionally, physically, nutritionally, or a combination of different things. And in kinesiology, we allow such bioindividuality to allow that person's body to completely choose its own healing path, whatever that might be, or what best suits it to move forward. And that can be profoundly huge.
So all the people you've worked with, Sally, what do you think they're really searching for underneath the symptoms of stress and anxiety?
I would say to remember who they truly are, because we get programmed and faced with all these beliefs and fears from other people and society over time. And now we're like, why am I so anxious? Why can't I remember who I am? So if we can access those beliefs, find where they came from, release them or process them, I can now just be who I am. And it's same with the emotions, isn't it? It's like we get so seduced by our emotions. Emotional regulation is our ability to process and move through emotions without getting completely overwhelmed or reactive to them. Our emotions are valid, and as I talked about, they're very real biochemical events. But life's a roller coaster, it's up and down. And then one minute we're happy, the next minute we're sad, we're angry, we're excited. Our human emotions are constantly changing, and it can be a habit loop, which we talked about a minute ago. We learn these things. And so depending on our conditioning and experiences, we can wake up very angry every day, and then that becomes a learnt response.
Yeah, and a habit, like you said, and I know myself, if I can sort of be a bit tetchety, but if I allow myself, I can still just remain in that state for a long time. Sometimes it's good to be able to have that self-awareness, to then have the ability to be able to check in with yourself, to have that different, I guess, perspective on how your patterns and behaviours play out. And like you said, when we think back to our conditioning as little girls, and I'm guilty of it being a mother as well, when children start to cry, you're like, shh, 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 here's an apple, look at this toy. You're doing everything to distract them from being in their emotion that they're meant to be having, because it's making us feel uncomfortable. But it's a natural thing for a child to fully express within reason. But there's something about their expression when we have got incomplete work ourselves, then that stirs up a feeling inside of us. So I find it all really fascinating.
Yeah, it's almost like a lot of women, I see this a lot, we feel responsible for other people's emotions. Like we want to compensate for something. Let's say someone's rude to us, we don't know how to respond, so we overcompensate for them to feel comfortable instead of making it awkward. Yeah, and like you said, it is a habit loop. We learn it. So let's say we're waking up very angry every day at that thing that person did a few days, months or weeks ago. and it might have been several different people each time. But if we're repeatedly doing that, waking up ranting and raving in our minds about that thing, it becomes a learned pattern, a habit loop. So no longer choice. That's why it doesn't feel like you can choose to do that. You're just wake up and you're doing it. So at that, we can become curious. Is it still about that person, or is there something else going on underneath? What's that anger helping you feel? Like a sense of feeling justified, or a sense of feeling right, or protection from feeling hurt. It's, can I learn to sit with that emotion instead of going, oh no, I'm not allowed to feel that way. I'm just going to put a smile on my face, get on with the day. And whether it's anger or frustration or sadness, whatever, let's say I have this temptation. Can I learn to sit with it? Can I learn to recognize I am safe to feel it and still choose to focus on myself instead of getting completely seduced by it or trying to push it away? So if I keep doing that, let's say, okay, I am safe to feel this temptation, or maybe I've felt it before and it feels very strong and it keeps coming back. I'm safe to feel it and acknowledge it and sit with it and do both and still choose to focus on myself. Both can exist. Retraining our nervous system to see it as safety rather than urgency.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that analogy. I like how you just described it, because it's so important. And often, I think many people think back to their childhood experiences and perhaps think that there was no issues. They had a really happy childhood. There was no problem. I've got nothing to complain about. But it's quite interesting when you start to do this type of work, how much can come out. And then you realize how much we've suppressed our feelings throughout life. So I think, like you said, just having that curiosity and ability to be able to sit with whatever's coming up rather than let it fully transpire, like the rage. It's like you can sit with a feeling of rage, but then acting on the rage itself is another thing, right? But yeah, I like that. Curiosity is a way to approach it.
Yeah, I love it, because it's almost we're robotic. We're operating from these programs in our mind, but we have free will and we have consciousness. And so we can start learn to have authority over our emotions, not suppress them or deny them, but start to have authority over them. Like, I am allowed to feel this anger and this rage without reacting to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, Sally, if someone comes along to have an appointment with you for the first time, can you talk us through what happens in a kinesiology session? What are the first things that you do when somebody comes to see you?
So I generally just get them to sit down. We have a little chat. They tell me what they want to tell me. I always ask, have you had kinesiology before? Because there are some balances and techniques that might be a little bit unusual to someone. And then I always ask permission. Is it okay if I muscle test or activate certain points on the body? They tell me what they want to tell me. And then I always ask, how would you love to feel when you leave this room today? Well, if you could have, be, or do something different from where you are right now, what would that be for you? If they don't know, that's okay. It generally comes out after. But if they know, then this is what they consciously want, which indicates something is incongruent in the subconscious mind. So we can work towards this goal and clear all the incongruencies towards that goal so that they now feel prepared and ready to achieve that goal, whatever that might be.
And so with the muscle testing, is there a specific limb that you use? Is it right or left, or it doesn't matter?
It's which way you're sitting at the table. I generally sit down, so I'm not towering over people, but the brachioradialis is just easy. People can rest on the table and I can just use that muscle. But actually, you can use any muscle. There are balances where you have to test all muscles. And the ones that you can't access, like the psoas or the ones inside your throat, etc., you can surrogate another muscle for that muscle energetically. And there are scientists that have gone into this phenomena. Greg Braden talks about it, where it's that synchronicity. They get a particle and they split it into two and they put it into different countries. They do something to this particle and simultaneously it happens to the other particle in that different country miles and miles and miles away. And they're like, is there a time? No, there's no time between it. It is simultaneous. So it's like this energetic phenomena. The proof's in the results.
Yeah. And do you feel like some people just don't respond to kinesiology at all? Like, are some people just so blocked that they have to come back for a few sessions, or do you feel like people open up straight away?
Interestingly, children respond amazingly because their brain is still so open. Their subconscious is still very open. And so if they have something, let's say they haven't spoken for, I remember my kinesiologist telling me a story. A child hadn't spoken for ages, one session, and then they just didn't stop talking. Like, I see it in children that one session is enough. But when we get older, we get a bit more set in our ways. And that's just biology, the brain. I see my kinesiologist almost every 6 weeks, regular, just because I have new goals, I have new things that my subconscious isn't familiar with. And if I'm striving to get it, I just can't, and something keeps bringing me back to this point. And that seems to be a pattern, whether it's your relationship, your business, or something else. It's like you're striving for it, and you might get it temporarily, but if it keeps bringing you back and you can't get past that glass ceiling, that's a very clear indication that something is incongruent in your subconscious mind.
For those people that get stuck or perhaps procrastinate.
Yes, exactly. Because that's like a self-sabotage, because on some level, it doesn't feel familiar or safe or deserving to have that new thing that I want. My business is about to get to the next level and I really want it to, but something keeps bringing them back. Or the
It's almost like a self-sabotage in a way.
It really is. Yeah, because the body learns patterns. So whatever's sitting in our subconscious, those patterns, beliefs, self-concepts, if I've got a self-concept of this is who I am and I'm convinced of it, then when I become this, I'm like, oh, who do I think I am? Or whatever thoughts go with it. It brings you back to this point.
Yeah. Interesting.
Whatever patterns and beliefs are sitting below conscious awareness brings us back to what feels familiar and safe, because the subconscious wants to keep us safe.
I can relate to that because when I first started this podcast last year, I had those feelings of imposter syndrome. And, some days I was just feeling totally energized about being on this path going, oh my gosh, this feels 100% aligned. It feels amazing. I was in flow state, loving it. And then sometimes at night as I was going to bed, or sometimes I'd even wake up in the middle of the night with just imposter syndrome. Who do you think you are? Starting a podcast. This is so weird. Oh my gosh, what are people going to think? I just would go down this rabbit hole. But then by the next day, I'd be back on track again. But it's interesting how those big feelings can come into play, where they try and sabotage you to get you off track because it just feels so wobbly and so unfamiliar. It wants to get you back where you're safe.
Yeah, and that can trigger a little bit of the fight and flight response, but Sans Heliers, I think he's called, classes it as eustress, good stress. It's growth. We need it. We need to learn to step outside our comfort zone. And we do all through our lives. But definitely, yes, it's good that you've acknowledged that, seen it, and still felt it, and still chose to focus on yourself and move forward.
Yeah, because you get to 50 and you really don't give a shit what anyone thinks about you anyway. So that helped.
Yeah, lots of
Exactly. I think I've said this before on this podcast. I'm not sure, but I've said it to my kids, when you're in your 20s, all you care about is what people think about you. And you're like, oh my gosh, what's everyone going to think about me? When you're 30, in your 30s, you really don't give a shit what anyone else thinks about you. And then you get to my age and you realize nobody was actually thinking about you in the first place.
It's like this universal fear of being seen.
Yes.
Like
yeah.
truly seen, not just visible, like I can post on Instagram, but being seen. It's like we don't want to see ourselves. We don't want to look at our own truth.
But isn't it fascinating? Because when we connect with people and we really see who they are and they see us, we are just so connected in that moment. It is just the most magical. I mean, that is what it's all about. Yet most of us just spend our life running from being in that vulnerable state all the time.
That's actually a really good point, because let's say there's two sides of a person. We have our chatty side. It's very chatty, it's very noisy, isn't it, in our brain? Oh, should I do this? Should I do that? Our beliefs, our coping mechanisms. Oh, I had a boyfriend, I broke up with him. That's devastating, but it's resolvable, isn't it? Okay, well, I'll eventually get over him and find someone new. Heartbreaking, it can take a long time, not denying that. This is what's sitting on this side of our body. And most of us stay here most of the time. Coping mechanisms. Whereas on the other side, it's very quiet. It's very real. And it can be very terrifying, because that's the truth. That's the things we've suppressed and repressed and we don't want to look at. I see it in my clients. People don't go there. They don't want to go there. And that's fine. You can get through your whole life with never going there. But I often see people dip a toe in and it gets very real. The energy gets very quiet and very real.
Yeah.
And then they come back out like, oh, this thing, and they get chatty again.
Yeah.
So this is what some people call it your shadow side, or your truth, or your depth.
Truth. Yeah.
And often we don't want to look at it because it is terrifying. We are so terrified to go there.
Yeah.
The truth is, if you do go there, and you don't have to, but if you do, you build real resilience to pain and suffering, not just good at getting my coping mechanisms good.
Yeah, it's so true.
Real compassion for people, not just, oh, well, no one cared about me, so I care about them. Why should I care about them? There's real compassion.
Yeah.
See the difference? This one's not resolvable, though. It's not I break up with my boyfriend, now I can get another one eventually. It's unresolvable. It's already happened. It's in the past and I've never dealt with it. That kind of stuff.
Love that. I love that. The truth. And it reminded me, Sally, I've been doing a lot of journaling and been journaling just about my life and past stresses, everyday stresses, different things throughout my life. And I found myself journaling about my mum, losing my mum. And I thought, gosh, why am I journaling about this again? I've journaled on this so often. But it was interesting. I got to this point. I just kept writing and tried to figure out where I was going with this. And then I got to this moment of truth. And it was around the time that my mum died. Everything I was writing was in hindsight, like, oh my gosh, how terrible, the poor thing, that's so awful. She must have been so sad, this, that, rah, rah, rah. And then I hit this moment where I admitted that I was relieved when she died. And it sounds terrible, but as a 17-year-old girl who had a mother suffering from mental illness, that impacted my life greatly. But I'd never admitted it out loud. And it was such a powerful moment because no one would ever say, oh my God, I'm glad they died, right? But it wasn't, of course, I would have her back in a heartbeat, but it was the relief I felt as a 17-year-old girl in that moment. So when you spoke about truth, for me, that's what that is. It's actually being okay with, that doesn't make me a bad person for thinking that at that particular time in my life. I don't think that now. But at that particular time, in that little moment, as a 17-year-old girl, that's what I felt, and that's okay. So what you're talking about, that is truth for me.
That's really amazing. Isn't that amazing? Like that thing that you just don't want to look at.
No, you don't want to look at, and you don't want to admit it to anyone, because then you think that's going to make me a horrible person. And then you might think, oh my gosh, karma, is someone going to strike me down for saying that, right? It's just all these kind of conversations that we can have with ourselves about a feeling, our feeling that's come up. And it's okay to be okay with that.
And we're not here to be perfect. And it's a normal human emotion.
Yeah.
And I think as well, when we talk about truth and things, we're so busy trying to fix ourselves and get rid of all of this fear and get rid of all that badness of me. Well, maybe I don't need to get rid of it. Maybe it was to protect me.
Yeah.
Okay, I built this belief that, this means this or this means that, or I suppressed that for this reason. For a reason, for a very real reason, at that moment, it protected us from something. And once we honor that protection, it's like we call it a healing paradox. Because the more we try and get rid of a feeling, the more it sort of reinforces there's something wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with us.
Yeah.
We created this or whatever it was for that person. And for you, it was the suppression of that thought. Because it protected you at that time, a very vital time of your life. And so once we start to honor it and see the value in it, it loosens its grip on us. And so now you're no longer operating from this, don't look at that, I don't know, whatever it was making you feel, vibration.
Yeah. So what has this work taught you about yourself, Sally?
It has taught me so much. Probably the main one was it's actually okay to not be perfect. It's actually okay that I get fearful. It's okay that I get angry. It's okay that I've had temptations. It's okay. Who cares? Right? Like, it's okay that I have tendencies as well. Like, let's say I do this work, I do it very regularly. But let's say I may always have a tendency to do that thing or to feel that way or for that temptation to come back or for that fear or anxiety to come back.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I'm not here to be perfect. I'm not expecting anyone else to be perfect. And I don't need to expect that of myself.
Yeah, I love that.
Having that realization makes me feel so much more relaxed.
Yeah, it's that self-acceptance piece, isn't it? It's like I'm 100% okay to be able to fully express who I am and just be okay with being flawed. It's like some of the most beautiful diamonds in the world are flawed, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's a beautiful message, that self-acceptance piece.
Yeah, and acceptance can be not such an easy thing with some things. Like they say, healing comes when we fully accept. But then are we just accepting to heal? It's like if you have chronic gut issues, which I've struggled with before in my life, I had to accept this may never go away in order for it to loosen its grip.
Yeah.
But that struggle of, well, I need to accept it so that it does go away. And it's just, it's like finding that balance. I'm actually okay as I am. I'm perfect, whole and complete as I am.
Yeah, I love that.
Journey. Yeah.
I been journaling, as I mentioned, and I wrote about because I too have had gut symptoms throughout most of my adult life, IBS, done the FODMAP diet, done it all. But lately I've been creating a different narrative in my mind, and I've been writing I think I wrote something the other day on my phone saying, "Dear bloat." And I went on. I know it sounds crazy, but just approaching it from a different angle of the protective mechanisms, my wired hypervigilant state that was created when I was a child. Understanding, like you said, the go-to, you might get on track, but every now and again something will tip you off and you'll go back to sort of old patterns and behaviours. But being okay with that and approaching it with curiosity and understanding your body's mechanisms and your body's protective mechanisms and the stress response. Some people might have that chronic neck issue. Some people have got chronic unexplained lower back issues. Some people have chronic IBS or migraines. But I believe all of it is a stress response.
Well, a lot of it can be, yeah. Some other things at play as well, like we could actually just have an injury, and I'm sure there's other things at play, but I truly believe the stress response definitely will, over time, impact our body, our health, our systems. Because when we're in a state of fight and flight, all of our other systems, like I said, take a bit of a backseat. So that's cellular repair as well. So if you've got a joint that might have been okay, you didn't really notice it, but over time it's just getting a substantial repair or half repair, then over time it's not had that full repair. So later on in life, when you do get stressed, that can get triggered again.
Yeah. So this podcast is ultimately about self-connection or self-reconnection and the many modalities that can help us get there. What makes kinesiology such a unique pathway back to ourselves?
I would say definitely because with muscle testing, we access the information in that person's body, what they want to look at right now, what their body needs. And there's a whole, the ICPKP database is gigantic, but others will have emotions that they can release and all these other things. But we can also ask, what modality does that person's body want? It might be that they need to see this other practitioner in this other modality, some breath work or a chiropractor or a doctor or a naturopath or a Pilates instructor. So I truly believe in the work that we do in kinesiology, just by accessing those subconscious beliefs in combination with other things that person's body is going to benefit from, more nutrition, in combination with processing, releasing or rewiring some unwanted or non-serving old limiting beliefs, can have a really profound effect on us reconnecting with ourselves.
So if someone listening feels disconnected, overwhelmed, or emotionally exhausted, where would you suggest they begin, Sally, if they were to explore some kind of healing work?
I would definitely say just close your eyes and sit with whatever you're feeling without judging it. Just let it be there. I know it doesn't necessarily feel very good, but with complete no judgment of how you feel. You might be judging something else. That's okay. Just let it be there 100%. And then you may notice where you feel it most in your body. And for the brain to access certain things, it's really good when you feel it in your body. Let's say it's in your chest, your shoulders, or maybe all over. Give it a colour. Any colour, just whatever pops to mind. Just trust yourself with what comes to mind. Just notice it. Thank it for being there, for protecting you from something. Validate it. And then you can start getting curious. Is there something else underneath going on? Where in my childhood or in my past have I felt similar? Or what pops to mind? And just trust what comes to mind, even if it doesn't necessarily make sense. And then you can, if you want to go deeper, go back and sit with that younger you and be his or her mum or dad in that moment. And listen. Don't talk or give advice. Just listen. And sometimes, often, that's all we need to do. We can come back. And then next time we feel a certain way, sit with it. Where do I feel it? When have I felt like this before? Go back to her, mother her, and just listen. It's such a powerful way just to let things from the past that haven't been listened to in that moment. Mum and dad possibly didn't have time, or they weren't around, or whatever the reason was. We now are responsible to meet our needs as that younger you.
It's being able to identify that beyond the symptom presenting itself. So if somebody is feeling emotionally exhausted or overwhelmed, it's being able to tap into where it felt familiar back when you were younger and understanding the connection. I love that. I just felt so calm, you talking me through it. Yeah.
Yeah, and if it's a really powerful one, take her with you or him with you. Take that younger you with you and put them in the room, give them a book to read or whatever. Have them with you so they feel safe. If it's a really strong reaction to a certain time in someone's life, take that you with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Sally, my moment of reconnection questions. What has your body taught you that your mind took much longer to understand?
My body was definitely trying to tell me to process certain things from my past. I know that. Just couldn't, I couldn't access it for such a long time. And so it played out as anxiety and numbing certain things to numb it, and just not knowing, not being able to be by myself. So that was trying to tell me, hey, listen, there's something going on. Because it was going on for so long. And this is why I think kinesiology really helps people. This is just who I am. You think it's just who you are. Oh, I am just a scattered, anxious type person that needs things to calm me down. Perhaps it's not. Perhaps there's just something that needs to be settled from the past, if that person's body wants and needs. So I definitely think that the anxiousness and the need for certain things in my life, in my 20s, was trying to show me stuff that I haven't processed or even looked at, because perhaps I just wasn't able to. I was just thrown straight into survival mode. And it is important to note as well, like when we do access those limiting beliefs in our subconscious and we rewire them, to give your body chance to catch up. So let's say someone had a fear of all dogs, just even the cute fluffy ones. Everyone's got a dog. It's very inconvenient. And so they change the belief, they access it and start to rewire it. And they may be around a dog, even a cute fluffy one. And they are allowed to feel anxious in that moment and still know that dog's not going to attack them. So just allow your body and mind to catch up to each other.
What season of life are you in right now?
Growth, definitely. Feeling a lot more better about myself than I ever have. If someone asked me, do I want to go back to 25? I mean, I'd love to look like that again. But no, I don't want to feel like that ever again. I love how I'm feeling right now. I definitely, like you said, when we get older, we do feel just care a lot less. It's not even courage, is it? It's just a calmness. It's just, it doesn't matter so much.
I think it's a real sense of who we are and like really understanding who we are. Just more self-awareness without even trying, really. It just sort of comes.
It's not even forced confidence. It's more of a, oh, well, this is it. It's not, this is how it is. Take it or leave it. And that's okay.
Yeah, because we still, I mean, like you said, we still care about how we look, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but I just give a little bit less of a shit.
Yeah.
It's not the most important thing to be looking my best all the time.
Yeah. I think it's a slightly different thing though, isn't it? We want to look nice and present ourselves a certain way. And we have to have like filters I can't just come on here and tell you all these things and start crying and have an emotional breakdown right now. I can have my filters, but still be real about it. Like, yeah, I have had breakdowns, and yeah, I have had those things, and I don't feel anxious or nervous to share that.
Yeah, I agree. And while we're sharing, I mean, I was pretty wild in my 20s, and I embarked on a psychology degree, which I didn't complete because I was so wild. And I was thinking, how the hell am I going to help other people when I can't even help myself? So for me, it just wasn't the timing. And I look at now how healthy I am, yet I used to smoke in my 20s and do all these things. I was wild. But looking from a compassionate point of view now as a grown woman, and like you said, tending to those younger parts of ourselves, I can look back now at compassion and understand the choices that I made back then were due to past traumas and things that I hadn't resolved from my childhood. And I was a bit of a lost soul trying to find myself. And eventually I got there. So yeah, so it's nice to be able to share that it's not about perfection. And sometimes you need to have those really bumpy roads in order to get to the destination, if there is one.
Absolutely agree. Because I went through that period of feeling a bit guilty, like, oh, if I could have been so much further ahead if I hadn't have been so
Yeah,
crazy
same.
in the day. But actually, now I look at it with such compassion and gratitude. I'm
Yeah,
really grateful that I had those experiences and went through those times, because it does make us who we are. And perhaps
yeah,
gives us some sort of reference to help other people as well, or um, helps contribute to wisdoms that we may have, and alchemize certain situations as well.
yeah. That's so true. Sally, I've loved this conversation. Thank you. What I loved about this conversation the most is that it reminds us that our body is not working against us. It's constantly communicating with us, guiding us, and inviting us back into deep connection with ourselves. Whether kinesiology becomes someone's pathway or not, I think the message here is universal. The answers we're searching for are often closer than we think, and sometimes we simply need to slow down enough to listen. Where can people find you?
Work in Vaucluse during the week, most days, Tuesday to Saturday. And then on Thursdays, I work at Paddington, at this beautiful clinic called Nurture Mind and Body on Glenmore Street, 357 Glenmore Street. Also, I do online as well. You can do
Gr-
on,
With kinesiology.
yeah, I have a lot of
Super.
clients.
And what's your Instagram handle?
Innate_balance.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on today. It's been wonderful.